it, I gotta die, even if I comply. These men hands in the sky, government stay telling lies. You really be starting these rides. I promise you, we getting tired. Promise you, these are the facts. Yeah, you know the facts. We about to start fighting back. It's your fault, this where we at. Or we wanna know what's up with that? What's up with that? What's up with that? What's up with that? Yeah.
Yeah. Welcome back, y'all. Unorthodox Style Street Minister King Kali, God's #1 hype man, because I'm always turning up for the good Lord. You know I'm out here grinding for God at all times. This is the community outreach segment, and I got something special for y'all, like each and every week. You know, I like to come with them stories, them community advocates, them powerhouse hitters, nonstop, over and over, back to back, week to week, man. We got something good for y'all. Before I get into this week's community powerhouse advocate, because she is definitely spoken, like as far as she is outspoken in so many different type of ways in mental health advocacy, politics, insurance, the list goes on, nonprofit organizations. But before we do that, I always got to tell y'all how God can turn a negative situation and turn into a positive thing. How the light can shine from the dark. How he can use your pain and turn it into a real true purpose. All right, ladies and gentlemen, God shows his real true strength in our weakest and darkest moments. And that's through deliverance. I also like to say what he offers and gives you through that is a testimony. I created the BS movement, which is breaking the silence, ladies and gentlemen. 2 things can happen when you break the silence. 1 is a form of therapy. You can talk about things and you'll start to feel better. And then 2, you leave a real life, live experience about a testimony of what has happened to you in your life so other brothers and sisters can learn from it. Those are 2 really great things that can happen. So remember, hashtag the BS movement, follow it and check it out. There's no more suffering in silence, ladies and gentlemen. We got to get ourselves out of that mindset. I'd like to jump into some upcoming events. Of course, we're in the Black History Month now. And at Our Redeemer Lutheran Church, every Sunday they're having a celebration of Black History Month with information about the forefathers and ancestors and different things like that. So you make sure you make it out there. I'd like to give a shout out to Bishop Gray in the Agape House. Big things are going on over there. They got also a tea and chat party over at the Agape House on 326-23 at 3 p.m. If you're interested in that, hit me up. And I also want to introduce something I've been working on. This is the Triangle Resource in collaboration with the Agape House, the Agape Men House. We are starting the first ever Urban Street Rap meets Kingdom Street Rap. Not a competition, but an introduction. On February 25th from 12 to 6 at the Agape House off of 17th Street, Northeast, DC. Myself and a whole bunch of other like-minded individuals are coming together, creating positive spaces to push for the movement into the spring. We're trying to set the tone early. With that being said, I also got to do a segment always for the voice of others, because a lot of nonprofit organizations and advocates get looked over and not getting a lot of recognition, so I'm going to do the recognition for them. All right? We got to give a shout out to Pastor Daryl Harrison and Daryl Harrison Crime Victims Foundation, Ernest Clover, Dr. Walters, Miss Tammy, Mr. Stan, all from the DC Dream Center. I got a shout out to Chef C Royalty and CR Wellness, Miss Carter, Douglas Knowles, the list goes on, Fred Heather, Power Jam Music Alliance, Gary Clark, Pep Rally for Peace in the Streets, Queen Afi, Domestic Violence Wears Many Tags, and then we got my spiritual grandfather, Reverend Motley, East of the River. And of course, I'm gonna introduce another one here where I'm gonna allow her to introduce it herself. So moving on into the show, I would like to just get this thing popping and going. We gotta change gears a little bit. If you were tuned into the first segment, very touchy topics right there. Looking for interaction, how you feel, kick it back so we can, we can just answer all questions and try to clear things up as we go, all right? So I just want to move on forward with that, and we're going to move this into a great wonderful thing, because I always love how to show how God really takes a negative situation in your life and turns it into a powerful thing, which catapults yourself into a lot of success. All right, I have stories over and over, like my own story, where I was in the dark, and until my deliverance from God and my relationship grew with God, I was able to use all the things that suppressed me younger in life, and now the victory goes to God, because the joke is really on the devil. because he thought he had me.
Oh, man.
But God was like, nah. I'm going to take everything that you put on him, and now he's going to come back and fight on this side. And because I'm walking in the light now, ladies and gentlemen. But so let's move on into this thing. Community advocacy. This is the community outreach segment, ladies and gentlemen. So I want to introduce y'all. Well, I will allow her to introduce herself. And you tell me a little bit about yourself, Dr. Ron. Well, I was about to say who you were. So go ahead and tell me your background information. How about where you born, where you from? A little bit about that.
Oh boy, hi Gary.
How
First
you
and
doing?
foremost,
Hey,
what's
sis.
up with that? Thanks so very
Thank you
much
so
for
much.
having me.
God
So
bless
glad to finally get here. You've been so patient. I am actually Dr. Rondell Hamilton. I am a native of Washington, D.C., Southeast Ward 8 exactly. However,
Ward 8,
I
baby.
claim the city of Washington, D.C.
And yes,
because
she
we
does.
love our entire city.
Yes, you do. So I would like to speak a little bit about some things that you've been doing in our community. Of course, we're going to get into the twist of the story, how I like to do that. Before we do, I do want to acknowledge, from me to you, I thank you for your leadership. I thank you for your mentorship, pushing for the people of mental health. I was introduced to you about 2 years ago, and it was like-minded individuals coming together, trying to make a push. And you came in with your piece, which was the mental health advocacy. And then after I got to know you, it was just such a broad. I appreciate you for allowing me to be a part of your Healthy DC and Me Leadership Coalition. Very proud to acknowledge that I am a part of this wonderful thing. I'll let her get more into that when we get to that part. But yeah, any other nonprofits? I mean, it's a few other things that you would like to hit on before we get going into the real twist of the thing.
Absolutely. Being a daughter of schizophrenia and drug addiction in Southeast Washington, D.C., that's a history and an education in and of itself. And so it's helped me to come forward and birth the Healthy DC and Me Leadership Coalition that you speak about. And the website is one and the same, .org. But then we also have M.I. Mother's Keeper, mental health advocates.
Yeah,
and
M.I.
M.I.
Mother's
Mother's Keeper is named in my mother, Regina Fleming's namesake.
Okay.
Because when we came to the community, what we realized is that I can't continue to lose my cool because the community is not educated about how to create a space for our families that are struggling. And so I realized that there had to be an education and an awareness on another level in order that we can be comfortable enough to embrace it, because they could identify with it, but no one wants to wear that label of mental health or the stigma.
Right.
So it was important that we figured a way to help create a world that we can all live in and put the dignity back into the process, because people don't understand mental health really.
Really, and you know what? We just was on. Well, just to speak about it a little bit. Also have their own Palms Up show on Tuesday nights at 7 o'clock. If you want more information, you can definitely hit me up or Dr. Ronna Hamilton. She's going to be sharing her contact information here at the end. So please stay tuned and stay with us this whole time. Powerful story I got for you guys. I mean, hey, the light can shine from the dark. All right, at all times when you have the power and the strength of the Lord Jesus Christ as your personal Savior, and He is your Almighty, there's nothing that can't be done. Anything that was put on you in life that you thought will hold you back and hold you down, God can turn that to good. Because what was meant for bad, God turns for good for His children. I want to hit on to the M.I. Mother's Keeper. Well, actually, the Healthy DC Me Leadership Coalition. I also, as I was getting to learn more about that, you also had a vision of something real big. All right. It's definitely still in the process. I'd like you to speak about that vision of that level 2.
I got you.
All right, give them a little bit about that.
Well, actually, My Mother's Keeper was the base of our intended outreach on the community level. We came out to do support groups, to create after-school environments where our teens and children and youth of all ages could come. But what we realized when we got on the ground was that there was such a disconnect, in terms of where our families could go and start to heal.
Okay.
The district and many urban understandings where the government is in charge of what we understand about mental health, there's a lot of revolving door processes and programs and no accountability. So what we realized is once the district did not recognize what we really needed,
Yeah.
we needed to help them further by showing them. And so what you're speaking of is the vision of Am I Mother's Keeper coming together to bring other organizations to the table, such as yourself,
Right.
who had like-minded, like mission, wanted to be able to see our people truly healed and truly impacted. And so we, myself and a group of another, about 8-9 organizations came together to form the Healthy DCME Leadership Coalition.
Right.
And the Healthy DCME Leadership Coalition was designed to elevate the conversation around trauma, to understand that we've got to be at the table. Coming out of a pandemic, we're dependent on third-party research when it's happening to us firsthand.
Firsthand, right.
So we are going to be building the Capital City.
Come on. There it is.
Capital City Emergency Level 2
Yeah.
Trauma and Wellness Center. And it's important to point out that it's a standalone.
Right.
They keep hearing us saying that we are getting ready to open the trauma center, and they're thinking in hospital terms. No, we pretty much have a traffic jam of resources. What we don't have is something that's customized to the African American community
I like that.
that needs to be able to address mental health from a 24/7 standpoint. Right now, the way we function as a city is more reactive, and mental health doesn't shut down at 5 p.m.
Hey, mental health is very, very important. Let me tell you something. Like we talked about it even into the homeless community. The mental health aspect of anything, for real, if you're not really right here, how are you going to be able to get everything else in order in line?
Amen.
And I love how your coalition and the vision that you have is surrounded around mental health. Like that's a very big piece that I know that I've gone to a lot of trauma centers, hospitals in general, and they don't focus a lot on that mental health piece. It wasn't until I got older in age to really, really realize how crippled I've been mentally with my mental health. You know, because I'm physically fit and all this and that, and you know, of course, I was suffering from alcoholism and drug addiction, and I didn't realize until I recovered from that of how mentally unhealthy I was. I mean, like, even down to regular, normal conversations. I mean, why am I reacting a certain way about something that's so small?
Absolutely.
Because I've destroyed my mental health, and I have to readjust, because there's a good thing about this. God has made us to where we can heal.
Absolutely.
And through therapy and through other things like that, we are able to heal ourselves.
Absolutely.
So that was just a little bit about the endeavors. I mean, we can jump into them with her all day long, because there's so many great things that she wants to do for our people. I don't want to just say and just leave it strictly to Washington, D.C. Even today, you were in Baltimore. I mean, push it in Baltimore.
Absolutely.
As a whole, Dr. Rhonda Hamilton is somebody that you want to support, because she is for the people, like straight up. And then she's out here, boots on the ground. And that's what I love about these people that are so authentic. And she literally has been out in the trenches with me, down in the streets with a gunfire, everything is, and just down there really trying to advocate for unsat living conditions, mental health advocacy, homelessness, sexual trauma, drugs, recovery. I mean, it's so many different things that she does. So please reach out to one of us so we can get you her information. If you are struggling with any of these things and you need help, trust me, Am I Mother's Keeper, Healthy DCME Leadership Coalition is out here. All right, there's organizations out here that need to be used. So get that information out there to y'all. So let's go ahead and just move this thing into what it is. All of the success in life that Dr. Rhonda Hamilton has had, myself and other people that I know, it comes with a pain.
Oh, yeah.
All right, you ain't gonna get nothing great in life if it doesn't come with some type of uncomfortableness, even down to uncertainty. I mean, it's so many traumas that had to transpire in my life to where now I know I am where I am now. It took me a long time to be able to look back at the things that always make me cry to now I can smile and laugh at them. Because I'm like, you know what, God, you had, now I know why. All right, because now I'm teaching about these things. Like, for real, these things really happen. So I want to get into the part where how the positive can come from a negative situation. Most of the advocates I bring up have a story. We all have a story, but there are different stories from different people that need to be heard, because somebody right now watching this could be dealing with a situation similar to hers. And I want to encourage you, my brothers and sisters, to edify the body of Christ, that through these testimonies and through these real transparent exposures to real life experiences, then will be able to understand, one, to weather through them because of how she's going to be able to break it down and would help her. And also just to encourage you to be strong, because there is light at the end of the tunnel. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get into it now. So during my walk with you, I've learned that, you know, you had a lot of things happen to you in your life. A lot of negative things. And like I said, ladies and gentlemen, a negative from God can turn a negative situation into a positive thing. So we'll get into some negative things. And I know that you've dealt with some early childhood issues. And I like to bring that up because that's what I dealt with.
No problem.
And I myself use a lot of transparency, and you can feel free to go as far as you would like to go.
Okay.
All right, and it's up to you totally. And any you already being here to share is enough courage to me already. I appreciate your bravery.
Thanks, Gary.
All right. So I know starting early in life, you dealt with childhood trauma. Coming from DC, you got to already be dealing with some type of society problems and trouble. So let's go ahead and start there.
Well, you know, being the daughter of mental health back when I was coming up, all those many years ago, it wasn't mental health really to us in the community, in the hood, Ward 8 Southeast. I was the daughter of a crazy lady. Let's be real. When we don't understand
a different
things,
aspect.
Absolutely. And
Listen,
children,
this could be for somebody.
children sometimes go in deep when they get hurt on that level because it's your mother. You know, it's your mother. What can I do to change that reality? But because I didn't have the education and because there weren't enough people in our community that came from where I came from that was talking about, that was doing what we do, Gary, you know, that wasn't cool.
People were teasing you behind that, wasn't they?
Exactly. And
Picking on you, teasing you.
I was an interesting little child. I developed anger. I acted out. And that's why I'm, you know, doing the work that I'm doing today. But the truth of the matter is childhood trauma, and the reason for why many of our children act out, it could be just as relative as what I went through, which is what many people's story and trauma starts from, is the exposure to child abuse. You
child
know,
abuse. I was about to hit in that. So,
and it happens in many forms, whether it's physical, mental, sexual, ancestral. It is the origination for trauma for so many. And then you go on because as people, we have to go to work. We don't have the luxury.
Gotta keep it going.
Of setting down inside of that trauma. We got to get up and keep going and
to
going
heal.
to work.
Taking
and we might not
heal.
even be able to understand it until years later. But the foundation I've realized now, having been afforded, haven't been delivered, haven't had God's grace and his mercy to understand over my life that I would be spared to grow up in this long enough that I would be able to come back and be a resource. It's like, hey, let's do this.
We're going to get into the good stuff in a minute. You know, I just want to, you know, focus on more things that was transpiring in your life. I know you was dealing with, you know, some negative characteristics that were being formed with you, like, you know, closing or sheltering your traumas and keeping it built up and body inside. And then you had outlets. You had to form outlets, and you probably had started doing other things. Mine went into alcoholism and drug addiction, and also sexual morality. You know, I had encountered a situation through some molestation that had put me in a place where mentally I wasn't prepared for. You know, at 9 and 10 years old, I'm not supposed to be thinking about things like that.
Absolutely.
And that just built negative characteristics of who I thought I was. And like you said, I didn't realize that until 20 years later.
Absolutely. About
how bad it really crippled me. I'm talking about 3 baby mamas. Like, I mean, you know what I mean? I'm not going to get on here, but I got to be transparent.
Yes, right.
You know what I'm saying? You know, a couple divorces, a couple baby mothers, you know what I mean? Children scattered around. Like, this was all from trauma and not being expressed and not caught at the dinner table. So how about you? You can say something similar?
I can say something similar, and I thank you for being so transparent, because we do this work. Why else would we live it and live through it if we can't share it and save a life, right?
Right.
But for me, I'll tell you, I'm on my 3rd marriage. So I understand about how you have to go through so many relationships, and it's about timing and am I healthy enough when I'm in those spaces. But the truth of the matter is that as a young child, not understanding, and as a teen growing up in the inner city, promiscuity is a issue, you know. I can say that my grandmother, who stepped in, my big mama, as they say, she did the best she could. But big mamas and generational understandings are no proper defense mechanism for what awaits us outside that door. And so when you're already a damaged child coming from a dysfunctional or a fractured family, you know, you are impressionable when you're out in that community. And let's face it, Washington, D.C., Ward 8 Southeast D.C. has always
it's popping.
Has always been. Yeah,
as long
you're
as
in survival mode.
Man, as long as I can remember, I'm 43. So as long as I can remember, this is not a place that you could just go. Nah, it ain't happening like that. So you were stuck in a toxic mindset.
Yes.
You were dealing with a lot of uncertainty. Well, you know, like you said, things that happen to you early in life, you don't realize until later, a couple divorces later,
Yes.
you know, like, well, hold on, it was me. Like,
Yes.
oh dang, I was the one that was really
Yes.
had the real issues here. And then as I got to know you, I got the new, you know, mentioned you mentioned to me a lot about how much you loved your father.
Oh, absolutely. He's my hero.
Yeah, he was your hero, right? And I believe there was something devastating that had transpired that
Absolutely.
really like, that's one of the negative impacts in your life that really hurt you, huh? Talk about it.
Yeah. You know, it wasn't enough just to be the daughter of schizophrenia, or as the neighborhood said, the crazy lady, which we know better. She's my heart.
Yeah.
And a beautiful soul. But my father, being a military man, an army man, went off early into the military and came home with PTSD that we know now, but we didn't know it then. And
Yeah,
so
it didn't exist.
He was
then.
dealing with his struggles with heroin and the usage of such.
Sorry,
and
man.
I'm an only child. I'm a daddy's girl, so no one wants to see their parent, regardless if you're only child or not. No one wants to see their parent
This
go
trauma,
through that, and you don't
nonstop
understand
trauma.
it, right?
Yeah, that's nonstop.
And so, yeah. He's my hero. We lost him over 20 plus years ago. And you know what? It's the lessons that I learned as a child. He OD'd when I was 16 years of age.
Oh, I'm so
So you can imagine, you know, me bouncing around and trying to figure it out. And that's why I say it takes a good heart and a secure soul to come out and use our stories to help save a life. So that peer-to-peer advocacy and mentoring is so important for the generations coming behind us and for the families that are stuck in these realities still. We've got to talk about it. We've been taught to be quiet.
Yeah,
But you hold all that in.
No
and
more
then
suffering in silence.
That's
ladies and gentlemen.
right. And when you hold it in, you're damaging organs within.
Wow,
So it's like we got to learn
Talk about
to
it.
do better, you know, so that we can grow better. And we do have to go through to get through.
Amen.
And let's be clear, I wasn't the only one in that relationship with issues,
Right.
because we tend to be a people with issues because we don't talk, we don't get the help, we
glad
don't
you brought
believe
that
in
up.
therapy, you know.
I
and
definitely,
so,
I mean, it's until I hit my recovery, I thought therapy was just something that was a joke to laugh about. But until I started using the therapy and talking, I started to heal. So before we shift this in thing, remember I told y'all we're gonna hit. Now guess what? God shows his true strength in our weakest and darkest moments. We are definitely gonna shift this into overdrive. Before we do, I wanna say, if you are out there struggling with these similar situations, don't let this hold you back. You hear the things that Dr. Rhonda Hamilton just shared with us. I know there's somebody in the world out there that is suffering with these things, but don't worry, don't let it keep you held back, because now we're gonna shift this into something greater. Now, a lot of people I bring up here experience a transition point, right? Me, it was a spiritual divine intervention.
Okay.
All right. I've heard it was death of others, facing a long time in prison. I mean, I have so many stories, and so I believe that you told me that your transition, where you really knew that it was God that had to step in, where you had to use only Him, was around the was it the overdose, if I can remember?
Yeah, 16. My father OD'd.
Listen to this. Before she says what she got to say, she's about to say something that's tragic, right? But look what happens when that tragic moment came. Watch what happens.
Yeah, when I was 16 years of age, just as many of our teens, you know, so it's such impressionable years. I was already dealing with the reality that my father was using drugs. My mom was at this point institutionalized at what we call St. Elizabeth.
She was in St. E's?
She was in St. E's. Over 20 years she stayed in St. E's before she came out. And we'll talk about that a little later. But the reality is that, my dad OD'd at 16, and getting that call was just so traumatic because, as you can imagine, he's my hero. He's my one parent that I'm holding on to. And, you know, so, we got the call that he OD'd. So by the time I got to where he was, he left in an ambulance, and I'm thinking that we've lost him. And he comes walking back through the door about maybe 30, 45 minutes later, because he got there and signed himself out because he realized, and it was something he was struggling with. But like I said, had he felt like he could really, truly talk about it, we might be able to sit here and interview him, and him tell you the story. But that's why I do the work, because there are so many of our heroes out there that we're losing.
Yeah.
We're losing the fight just because of generational understanding, just because we weren't taught it. We didn't talk about it. We were taught to be quiet.
Yeah.
And now the research is supporting the fact that, and that's why we're
changing
doing the work. So I know why I do this work. And I'm no different, I feel, than anybody else, Gary. The truth of the matter is we can see ourselves in each other and each other's stories. And so somebody's got to be brave enough to step out there, because if not, we're going to keep letting other people tell our stories for us, and we never will escape.
Hey, watch this, y'all. So in that time frame when your father overdosed, at 16, you told me something transpired also, where you had to depend on one situation. Person. It was one thing that transpired, and I believe God presented Himself in a way that you didn't. You knew of God. I talked about that before. I said at one time in my life I knew of God. But now I know God.
Absolutely.
Because I have a relationship with God. And He exposed Himself to me, and that was my weakest and darkest moment. I believe that you mentioned around that time. That's when He didn't come to you in that type of sense. It was like, you have nothing but me.
Yeah, that's the reality of it. And usually that's when many of us find Him, is when we're going through our darkest hours. Moms in SAEs, pops in OD.
What's going on
now? I'm in school. I've always been an A student, or a student that's performed, overachiever, what have you. Because remember, I was trying to escape that label of being the crazy daughter. So I needed to prove that no matter what I do, I wasn't going to end up like that.
Right.
Because I didn't understand it. But the truth of the matter is, at 16, I was on my knees praying for my hero.
Amen.
Because I couldn't believe he was going to go out like that. I still didn't understand it. And I needed him, And so the truth of the matter is, as I look back, being, how old I am now, won't share that yet. But the truth of the matter is, I realized that he was with me the whole time, because there are events that I can look at. I have no idea how I came through or got through.
You don't see him until you're older.
You don't.
And I look way back like, oh man, that was God there the whole time.
What is that? Be patient and wait on God, and He been there the whole time.
The whole time He's right there.
I had to get still, be still, and be quiet, and understand that, there was a calling on my life, and for everything that I thought was negative, as I learned through my business understandings, I'm earning my wings. And where we come from, we don't have those types of understandings. There's no manual.
I see where we about to shift this thing right on here, and that's my punchline right there. Now watch what happens, ladies and gentlemen. So all this darkness, all this negativity, it all changes because, listen, one, she acknowledged God, her Lord and Savior, God, and what does He do for His children? He gives us a way out.
Amen.
And not only does He give us a way out, He takes all that pain and He turns it into a purpose.
Amen.
So all of a sudden, these great things start transpiring. You're like, remember, like I try to tell y'all, how God can take a negative situation and turn it into a positive thing. So guess what? You obtained your relationship with God. And then things started to change for you in your life. So give it to Him. Show the true strength and power of God, because now the positive starts to roll in. Once that started to happen, that was as early as 16, and then it started to grow from there. Let's get into it.
Yes.
You met a military man, and life moved on. Would you say that was a positive shift? What do you think?
Yeah, there are folks that know the story, so I better clean it up. He wasn't a military man when I met him. He was just like me, someone from the city.
Wow.
He had dreams.
That's
he had a vision.
That's what you need to show.
Exactly, and so finding God at 16 and understanding that I had to give it over to Him. The reality was that I recognized that. When I met my first husband, I was looking for something in him that would be godly enough that would pull me out of, because I didn't want to stay with the dysfunction, right? My journey had already been defined based on what I had been familiar with.
Right.
So I was excited to find a young man whose family had raised him through the church. He was a God-fearing man, and he had a goal and a vision, and he wanted to be a military man, and he was traveling to Germany, and and when you're 16, I met him at 16, but we didn't get married till I was 18. Your eyes are wide open. But God was working. And I was able to travel, and I had to make a hard decision because most of my friends were in college, going off to college at that time. But
since you said college, let's just push on to that, because more positivity starts coming around. Then you land some degrees. I mean, you are a doctor.
Yes, I am. I tell you what, I spent 4.5 years in Germany. I was there when the wall came down. Was able to start some of my studies there.
Wow.
Yeah, not even realizing that I have the experience of a lifetime coming from Southeast DC.
Right, I'm about to say, you in Germany. Great things are happening for you.
Yes, and I had an exposure that changed my perspective, and that's something else to think about when we do our work. we can't get them outside of their geography or out of their everyday scenario.
Right.
And they don't understand the greatness or not able to fulfill their true potential or find their purpose. And so I do know what that did for me at 18. I got married in my first marriage at 18, traveled to Germany and learned the world and got to meet other people and other people's stories. And there was a church there. You know, we had to do 3 or 4 different denominations in one building, but the reality of knowing that I'm away from home, I'm away from all that I know, but at least I know to get my butt in church, right?
Yeah.
That's where I was with it at the time. And later I would mature to understand that God's going to be with me wherever I am. Because, you know, as you grow, you run into man's interpretation and they get in the way of the dream, right?
Hey, hold on to that thought. We're gonna pay some bills real quick. This is well. This is an interesting segment, ladies and gentlemen. All right, there's been a lot of different things that's been transpiring. We're gonna bring in a part 2 of this thing. All right, so be tuned in real soon. I'm gonna bring in a part 2 of this community outreach advocate, Dr. Rhonda Hamilton. We're gonna close out with that, ladies and gentlemen. I hope y'all enjoyed what you did get. So you have to stay tuned for part 2. God is great. The community outreach segment, Dr. Rhonda Hamilton, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, guys. Palms up. I'm on Facebook. Yes.
The Chemotep Foundation was inspired by my daughter being diagnosed with cancer. And through the pressures that my family went through, it's foundations like ours that offer resources that made it easier for us to manage the stress that a trial like this can bring. The Chemotep Foundation goal is to give support to families who have children that have been diagnosed with cancer, and to possibly bring a smile to a child's face.